is happening and how ICH can solve it. I think this is something very important, especially aligning with the spirit of the convention. And also, I agree with Dr. Alex that, for outsiders or people who are not familiar with the context of the country, it would be helpful if you could like just provide some names, not only about the annual competition, but what is that like? How does it involve to further support your statement? Like how do these festivals or what is the kind of thing that promote mutual understanding and intercultural exchange and pluralism and removing the misconceptions and stereotypes? I think that could help a lot. And I also like I read your section here, and I'm curious, like what kind of stereotypes and what kind of misconceptions that is like that is mentioned here. And I understand about the word limit and also the sensitivity of the issue that perhaps you don't want to elaborate too much, but to help readers understand a little bit more, maybe you can specify, is it about race or is it about, what is it about that's stemming from the misconception and stereotypes, and then building on to make it correlating, like then how do these ICH help remove those stereotypes and misconceptions? Like, in other words, just strengthen and add a little bit more like example or names or something that you're trying to present to the world, because I think that is something that really interesting. Yeah.
Okay. I will note it about that and copy to my teams as well. Yeah.
Okay. So I only have like a very little observation. I mean, like among all the things, as Jen, Alex, and Pinina has already said, like on the specificities, like putting a lot of examples. Don't just generalize saying that it hits this goal or that goal in particular. I'm just looking at 15.1. Like I know that it's nice that you put like some of an example of the one village, one product program, and that it hits what goes and goes, but probably like be more specific in like, at the say project level or the name of the community if possible. And one of the thing is another issue is on terminology, like probably like this is not the word for this particular convention. I know the DOA is very used to the word conservation and preservation in their normal work, but I think like for this convention, please refer to it with the word safeguarding, just to be safe when you say things, because it's kind of like it's more of the flow of the way that they would understand that you would mean like not only to you know conserve the object, but also like to talk about promoting and supporting local community. So probably the word preservation is not like something to generally being used. It's not like in the World Heritage Convention, so to say. I'm trying to pick up some of the other things, but another thing that you might want to also include, even though it's not at the particular section, is on community involvement. Like I know that you were talking about the commitment on the mutual respect and all, but probably like put it into a certain example of how the local community express the like how the public express the mutual respect or understanding, and how local community are encouraged to be involved in the process of like that you're saying as one of the examples, for example. Okay, so that's also like my of the point that is very similar to John Alex as well, and Pinina as well, like be more specific, using a lot of example, because this is more like a report of what have been done. So there must be like talking about example not more than just a general policy guidance or majors. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's pretty good like in overall. And I think like they were doing it in a way that is like very word count conscious. Like I just
Yeah.
pan my mouse over it and it's exactly what the limit for. It was pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I should also chime in and say, I got right into the content, but I want to backtrack a little bit and just also congratulate you, because it's
Mm,
very
it's pretty
um,
good.
to see that you've come this far already, and really are on point with these questions, which are
Thank
not
you.
easy questions.
Mm.
Um, so maybe let's look at 15.3, because I think this is actually kind of a tricky question, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because it's asking whether development interventions. So in this case, we have to reflect on what that actually means. So development interventions, meaning something that is projects, activities, policies that would recognize the importance of ICH in society, right? So let's look at your response here. So how do these development interventions recognize the importance of ICH as a source of identity and community? So again, we have this important centrality that you pointed out in the other assessment factors about the role of cultural festivals for fostering a sense of collective identity. And I think for sure that's a good example. And that you specifically point out that governments allocate funding and designate public holidays to commemorate these events. And then this specific festival. So that's great too, to have that specificity of the name of the festival, Ata Tinyan, the time of national celebration, vacation period. And that this point is also again highlighted that this is not only a leisure activity, but it's a platform to promote unity among different cultural groups. And again, I know, as always, space is limited. This is so important for this question and for this kind of core principle of the convention, that I would say it's worth trying to, even if you just add one sentence sort of describing how do these festival holidays, or how, for example, does the Adatinyan promote unity among these different groups? Can we see the participation of different cultural groups from different regions, or in some way to reflect that in a bit more descriptive detail? I know there's very limited space, but it would really strengthen this point. And also that it plays a crucial role in transmitting cultural heritage and values to younger generation, raising awareness and maintaining social cohesion. So I think in this one we see, in this response, we see clearly the link being drawn to development initiatives, right? Yes. Development interventions. And Myanmar's commitment to assist development consolidation and preservation of national culture. And well, that's it touches on the point that LK made a moment ago, the sort of sensitivity of the word preservation, but that may well be the language that is used in the article of the Constitution, right? May probably uses that term, preservation. Okay, as a source of...
Sorry, can I ask? This kind words of the preservation can use in here like that, or it's maybe different interpretation in that?
Well, if you want to kind of I think emphasize the ICH convention, it would be maybe to use the term safeguarding rather than preservation. And that way you don't raise any red flags, right? That, oh, well, we don't want to freeze culture, right? Yes. The goal is not to freeze culture, but rather to support its transmission and ensure its continuity. So I think if it isn't a problem to the team, then to maybe just change that terminology a bit. Because yes, preservation implies, it's much more often used with the tangible culture, material culture, where you're trying to preserve the physical integrity and form of material heritage. But in terms of intangible heritage, there's a different core principle of maintaining the vitality and meaning and living nature of the heritage. So I think to use, and in the spirit of the convention, just to use the term safeguarding instead is probably the easiest way to get around that.
I see. Thank you for explanation, Alice.
Sure.
al-
Should we
I
just
al-
go question by question? Why don't
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, let's do
Yeah,
that.
keep going.
Mhm.
Are you still on
Oh,
the 15 indicator? Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Keep moving. Do you want me to share the screen?
It's up to you. Because of my eyes, I need
Okay,
to go to
you're looking at, I see.
file anyway, but it's up to you.
So where are you now? Just to
As a
confirm.
source of knowledge and skills.
15.3?
No, I'm still, yes, 15.3. Yes,
Yes.
15.3 in the section on as a source of knowledge and skills. So in this section, I think that the response talks about the rich heritage of Myanmar's arts and crafts and the range of disciplines, and how integral they are to Myanmar's daily life, and that there continues to be reverence, and these particular fabrics woven on over 100 looms. And this is an interesting example. Also, that the transmission of knowledge and skills is highly valued. And then there is this mention then of the intervention, right? The development intervention of vocational technical schools, specializing in lacquerware and weaving. But elsewhere, the what was it? The one product, one similar to the Thai case, right? The one product, one province. What was in what that was up above.
It is.
Yeah. It was the one product, one village, one product.
Yes, one village,
Yes.
one product. That is certainly also a development intervention. I don't know if there are other interventions that support the that reflect that that development interventions recognize the importance of ICH, right? So that one certainly does also. You could just mention it again, reinforce that point about that Myanmar, that there are these development interventions recognizing the value of, in this case, crafts, right?
Yes.
And then turning to the third point here, as a resource to enable sustainable development. So offering a rich resource that can support economic growth, social cohesion, and environmental sustainability. The economic asset, cultural tourism, traditional craftsmanship. I think again, this is it's a solid response. I would broaden the definition of sustainable development to include the social and environmental dimensions, not just the financial. Here, the emphasis seems to be on economic
I see. I understand.
Benefits. I mean, you mentioned the social and environmental dimensions, but the examples given are focusing more on the economic development, economic sustainable development, right? So if there are examples that reflect how ICH is recognized as a resource for environmental sustainability and social. I mean, social you've said quite a bit about, but in fact, I would say so far haven't seen the link to the direct link to environmental sustainability. So, if there are examples where you see the kinds of policy interventions, development interventions that acknowledge forms of ICH that contribute to environmental sustainability. What would those be, or are there any that come to mind? That would be something to think about. It could be traditional knowledge related to, agroforestry, for example, or sustainable water management practices. These are, we don't often think about that as intangible heritage, but these forms of knowledge are also intangible heritage, right? So if there are examples of that are being recognized and supported, then those should be highlighted as well. Okay, so I'll pause there.
For this part on 15.3, I wonder, like, the word development interventions can include other kind of development, projects or activities going on in a country, other than just cultural, directly cultural developments. So it could include like other kind of, projects, construction, or any kind of programs going on like that is related to ICH. Do you think that could also point out to that one, or this one is more specifically scoped to just cultural development interventions? It's just a question to Dr. Alex and LK. Yeah, what do you think? Is it just when we said development interventions?
I think like that's a good way to look at it. Look at it from like, the different kind of development going on and how each of them would recognize the importance of ICH, or the importance of continuation of local tradition that in the area. So it could be also one of the way to form the answer as well. I would agree with you, Pinina.
Yeah, I think it's broader than just what we would determine to be sort of the cultural sector, right? Because, for instance, at least within the sort of the way that within government these areas of practice are siloed or separated, usually would be fisheries linked to cultural sector. But in fact, traditional fisheries, traditional fishing practices is a kind of ICH, right? Especially if you look at modes of traditional fisheries that use, traditional techniques of evaluating the kind of, I forget the terminologies, these sort of different, waterscapes where you'll find particular kinds of fish, and knowledge about breeding grounds and the baskets. All of this is ICH. It's living heritage because it's been transmitted intergenerationally. It's part of a whole holistic livelihood, even though it's not. It doesn't fall into the category we usually, or the sort of framing we usually think of with culture sector, right? Which is generally performance, ritual, etc. But traditional fisheries is most certainly a form of living heritage. So that would be one example. Or again, I mentioned the agroforestry. Like there are interesting examples of that. Like in Java, they have a system of sort of communal management of the agroforestry lands that can be collectively used in times of shortage and drought. And so I think you might have to explore beyond culture sector to see if there are traditional practices within other fields, be it agriculture, be it water management, fishing. What other examples can you think of? Just because I emphasize this, just because this dimension is so often neglected or not given adequate
Mhm.
attention or recognition as
Mm.
contributing. And it's
Mm.
so important for sustainable development, right? And these forms of knowledge are really so crucial for,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sustainable development. So,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
yeah, those would be my suggestions there. And I think it's in keeping with what you were saying, Nina, that
Mhm.
development interventions, it's broader than culture, right? Sorry, I
Right.
interrupted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
So in that case, it means like just from your report now is just focusing a lot on just the development for the ICH itself, right? But
Mm.
perhaps you can also look at a broader everyone has said now, like what about other things going on that are, interventions or I don't
Yeah.
know, in terms of policy development that can even be included, or it can be
Uh-huh.
about tourism, or it can be about, construction, I don't know, like infrastructure, etc. Like does that respect the importance of ICH?
Mm-hmm.
For example, community forest, or if possible. But I don't think you have to worry too much, because when I look at the word count and like other countries that have already submitted for this part is pretty
Yeah.
short.
For
but
sure.
but at
But
least
I mean,
maybe
like
you just give an
you can cut
overview.
this kind of general information sentences before you go into the details, because like this will save you a lot of word counts, and you just go right into the details, because like I think all these you have already made a good background writing at the beginning. So you don't have to repeat that again, that Myanmar has a rich cultural heritage again, but just go right to the point. Just go right to, like, for example, this is the example of how ICH enables sustainable development, or this is how the example of how development intervention, economic development intervention, or scientific intervention uh, recognize or like recognize or be aware of the ongoing ICH practices in the local area, for example, like that. Just go right into the point. Like you can even start a sentence with like, for example. And one of a trivial observation. So this is something that I know that people like to do. They like to put themselves in a largely, but if you put like largely on board, like what you're seeing yourself in 6 years time from now and now, it's not gonna look nice. So probably you can go with a satisfied here if you're like very ambitious, or you can drop down on the extent to which the current indicator is met, like depends. So just to show that the countries actually have a forward looking to progressing in the 6 years, not like to be on the same level in 6 years. So that would be like just a very tiny observation. Yes. Ajahn Alex and Pina, you have anything to add on the 15? Can we move on to the 16?
Yes, let's move on.
Okay. So for the 16, if possible, can I start for a bit?
Mhm.
Yes, please.
I know
Please.
that like for this one, it talks about indigenous people, and it's not a comfortable word in many countries, including in Thailand, and I'm pretty sure in Myanmar as well. But
Yes.
you might want to, like, because they're here, I think the country, the you have to also click somehow here to check, like some country doesn't check this, like for Thailand. As I know, they skip this because they do not recognize the word, and they just come and fill in here, like check here instead, and then they answer here. So you can actually do that. You don't have to repeat the same thing for the same group of people. I know that for you it means the same thing. So you can also do so here, and just say, like, because here you only talk about languages, like the variety of languages. I know that you might want to use this as an opportunity to expand word counts, but if not necessary, then you don't need to do this. But over here, the issue is that it deals a lot with how indigenous languages are integrated in the formal education, which would be more useful to include this in the indicator 2 on ICH in education. Not much on here, but on here, I think the objective of what they want to talk about is on how inclusive you involve people in the safeguarding activities, not that you're talking about, not that you whether you or not you teach their languages in school. But of course, teaching the language in school is one way of safeguarding the language, but probably like not just to focusing on answering about that alone in the whole answer.
I see. Okay.
Mhm. Then Alex and Penina, would you like to add?
Yeah, okay. So for 16.1, the same comment for LK. And perhaps maybe this will help you a little bit to just step back a little bit and go to your what do you call your information of what are the safeguarding plans and programs, right? Then you can see that what are the safeguarding plans. So it's not only about mother tongue or language education program, but probably are there any other safeguarding programs or plans going on? Like you said that there are festivals and national events. I think those could be counted as part of the safeguarding activities and programs, right? So, for example, if this is just one tiny example, if you say that those cultural days or one product, one village is one of the safeguarding plan in your country, then you answer whether like are different ethnicities and different groups of people participate or part of that program or not, whether in the designing, in the implementing, in the benefit receiving, like or is it just only some ethnicities could participate in that? I think this kind of answer, like this approach, will be more relevant to what they're looking for. Yeah, and all sectors and yeah, like all kinds of people. Basically, they want to see if there's a discrimination of safeguarding
That's
in the
all.
country or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, yeah, they're safeguarding, but only upper class, or safeguarding, but only in this province or in this group of social status people, or in the government only, or something like that. I guess that's what they're trying to find through your answer. Yeah.
Mhm. And on the people of different ages as well. So that can go right into the for example. And one of the good example could actually be from the first answer here, which is like on like formal education. So that could actually show that you are like also paying attention to transmitting intangible heritage in the younger generation as well. So find more very solid example. For this one, you can even partially use the example I provided in for theme 2 that I just sent it to you as a gift, just to add on this, that you're not talking about people within the school, but out of school student, or or elderly or something could also be a part of the people that you factor into the safeguarding measures of the country as well.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, but I know like some you might not be able to find a legit answer, but as much as you can, just that.
Yeah,
Like for
yeah.
the
For
one
like,
on the disability, it's pretty good. Like,
mm,
Okay.
yeah.
mhm.
So in other words, if your first paragraph kind of, lays out the foundation of what kind of safeguarding are there, then I think you can easily see who are the target, audience, I mean, participants, and whether that include everyone or not. And
Yeah.
I know in terms of data collection might be challenging when we're talking about the national level, but just to give just give some examples, like concrete examples, and one or two, I guess that would suffice. And that would also help you reframe your answers for the rest. Like, for example, different age, then you will see that you're not only talking about education, right? But you will also talk about other kinds of, like, other more broader
Mhm.
projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it should be okay for
Yes.
16.1.
Yeah. Now
Ajahn Alex.
16.2. Okay. And then Alex, do you want to add anything?
I think you both have covered everything. I'm just trying to think of some other potential kind of examples of plans and programs. Like I'm wondering if, for instance, in museums, or if there are any other
Shy.
small kind of local level um, institutions or organizations, or something like museums or learning centers that have these activities that bring different groups together for any kinds of ICH related activities. So that would be a kind of local level example, because what you're describing for the most part is still very, it's sort of focused on language, and then the sort of what the Constitution states in terms of ethnic equal civil rights. But I think really what this is asking for, what the report is asking for, is some specific, because it says in the statement, right, please provide examples.
Okay.
So of how ICH plans. So it's not just what is the overall policy, but please give an example. So I think it's important to try, if there is any, and if not, then, you know, to maybe acknowledge that there are limited kinds of opportunities for that kind of programming, or but maybe there are some things that have not been brought out yet. Like, again, the question about museums as a space for multi-ethnic activities. I don't know if they're used that way in Myanmar. Okay.
Yeah. For 16.2, I'm grateful that you have like explained and elaborated like who did what. But I guess the question, like the first part of the question is like they want to see how, like, you know, like the ministry did all kinds of things with all the associations in various kind of ICH domain. Like how did these activities foster, you know, like respect and mutual respect, self-respect and mutual respect between, you know, different people and communities. I guess this hasn't been like answered yet. I think it's except the last sentence, but it's a bit very like broad or general. So I don't. Maybe you can strengthen this part by like so to summarize a little bit about who did what, but then just say that these actions or these activities or these safeguarding plans and programs, they led to you know what, like respect or reduce conflict or misunderstanding, or you know all the things that could answer about this. Or maybe they connected different groups of people together, different communities, ethnicities. If that happened, I guess, yeah. And how, like, how did you know that they respected one another and themselves better through after they participated in this safeguarding plans and programs? That's just my quick glance at this answer. But I'm impressed when you laid out the, like, you know, like literature and culture association, and then like this association and the music association and theater and traditional artists, etc. I guess like that has made it clear for us to see. But I also wonder, like, are there other kind of like ICH associations that are, for example, about actually, I did a workshop with some Myanmar youth in Thailand. They did a workshop on how to use their traditional wisdom to safeguard, I mean, to conserve their natural environment and to help mitigate the risk of climate change. And then, you know, like that kind of, instead of just literature, music, and theater, or like craftsmanship, maybe there are other kind of relevant beneficiaries that you know participate in the safeguarding programs, and that could reduce conflict among the people. I think I'm having verbal diarrhea now.
You can't
my
stop
mind goes in
talking.
circle. I'm sorry if I confuse you. Now I confuse myself. Forgive me.
I also
Okay.
read this part, and sometimes I'm missing that what they want, like and I confuse their answer as well.
Yeah. Okay, we're all confused together.
Well, can I make a suggestion with that? I mean, I've found it helpful to go to some of the reports of other countries just to get some ideas and you know, reflect on what the possible answers, the scope of the answers might be. And I was looking at the report from Greece, which was interesting because for this question, for 16.2, they mentioned this case where there's been this sort of transformation of this part of the country in Greece, where there used to be a primarily agro-pastoral area. But then from the 1970s, it became a more industrialized area, and many more migrants came into the area, including Greeks who came from USSR, newly found Indian and Romanian communities. So there's been this massive transformation in that area since the 1970s, right? And what followed was some very intense ethnic tensions. So what the report describes is this program, and it specifically mentions this case and the program aiming to eliminate those tensions and break stereotypes among different cultural groups, using ICH as a link and common background for memories, agricultural and food traditions for the cultural communities living in Pigros. So, I mean, I just wanted to give you this example because, again, it comes down to, maybe highlighting one specific example, like one of those that you have here, and addressing how it fostered self-respect among this group. What have they faced, and how has the safeguarding plan and program fostered self-respect among that group, or mutual respect among two groups. So that it isn't quite so broad, but we have, and this goes back to, I think when we were in the meeting in Jeonju, I think many times this came up. The suggestion for the responses was to give kind of an overall broad picture, and then to give a more detailed, specific example, fleshing it out a bit. So, yeah, that would be my suggestion for that response as well.
Great.
Thank you.
I think we sort of covered, and I mean, like, just considering that the quality of work is very acceptable, and but as we emphasized over, like, that the actual examples are required. Yes. And so they might need to do a little bit more digging into other departments or ministries to find some of the relevant examples as well. And I know that in Myanmar you also have a lot of uh, architectural private sector that's also like these days, especially in Yangon, or that they go out to also not only documenting architectures, but they also documenting, religious way of life, or some of the rituals in temples, because like while you're documenting temples, you also they also document like how this building is used for whatever and what rituals. It's as one of the way that they are trying to contribute while like during the time of the civil unrest, that they were trying to document as much of a smaller community level cultures as much as possible as well. So that could also be one of the association, like, as I know that you have reached out to some of the association, architectural association could also be one of the people that you can find out, like, because they work a lot directly with temples, and in temples is also a center of different kind of traditional cultures.
Okay.
And just one last for a point on this section, like I just remember that you wrote about some national cultural event or festival, right? So I'm just looking at the periodic report from other country, how they answered this one. They could also say that, there are festivals, for example, and then the name of the festival, it invited and encouraged people from the mountain, from the coastal communities, from etc. rural and urban. So all of them connected to through this festival, and that's how they learn about one's another way of life, and also cultural identities, and also other kind of dialogue that really connected people together. I think that could be one way to simplify and to connect to your previous example. Yeah, because I saw them wrote only 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Okay. So you also did the indicator 21, right? So would
Yeah.
we want to go
Do
through?
you want to save that for later, or do you want to go through it? We can.
You ask me or you ask Sue?
I'm asking Sue because I
I
know
think
you're.
that's better. We just stop in 15, 16 today, and
Okay.
do that again on
Sure,
15 maybe,
sure.
right?
So in
Not
case they
maybe
want to
90.
rewrite the 21, 22 with more examples, then they can also do so and send over. Or other themes aside from these two, if they have and they want us to have a look, they can also send over, not limited to these two themes. Like tell them
Mhm.
like any
Yes, yes.
within the section
I'm
B is
planning
okay.
that I will meet with my team in maybe in this week, and after that I will suggest those points, and after that
Great.
they review it and they collect the data. And can I send again to all of you to
Yeah,
review?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you so much for that.
And off record,